Tuesday night was not a great night for the Carolina Hurricanes as they lost their third straight game of this road trip in a 3-0 defeat by the hands of the Buffalo Sabres. While there still are 5 games remaining left in the regular season, is this a slight hiccup, and can the team turn it around before the playoffs start?
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. Also do some baseball coverage over at Covering the Corner for SB Nation. The co-host of the Search Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a Wednesday edition of the show as we get to talk about the Canes' third straight loss of this road trip to now have their road record be 16-19-3. 5 games left remaining in the regular season. What does that look like for them? They have been outscored 13-4 in these last 3 losses to Detroit, Boston, and Buffalo. What has gone wrong for this team in this stretch? And we do hear from Rod Brind'Amour postgame following the team's loss. Now, the score, I wouldn't really say reflects the game overall in terms of the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, they did have some not so great turnovers that did lead to some goals for the Buffalo Sabres. But, I mean, Buffalo only had 18 shots the entire game. Never had anything double digits. The Hurricanes had 33. So, as the old saying goes from a lot of people that you usually hear on social media or just in journalism, experience Hurricanes hockey. 33 shots, no goals. The other team has 3 goals on 18 shots. I said on Tuesday's show, you got to watch out for the 3-headed offensive monster that is Thompson, Tuch, and Peterka. And all 3 of those guys scored respectively for the Sabres. Thompson, minute 32 into the second period. Tuch, 16:45 on a shorthanded goal, which not great for the Hurricanes power play to give up a shorty. And then J.J. Peterka, 1:58 into the third period, and that was all she wrote. And, of course, James Reimer, former Carolina Hurricanes netminder, with a 33-save shutout. Not the greatest. And the Hurricanes PK unit did their job. They went 2 for 2 on the night. Unfortunately, the power play went 0 for 3 and gave up a shorthanded marker. Thompson, 44th goal of the season. Tuch's 34th. Peterka's 24th. And that's just a weird descending order of it's 44, 34, and 24 because, of course, why not? But like I said, it's just the Hurricanes, unfortunately, just had one of those games where nothing really seem to go right. Kochetkov could do all he could, but in the end, it's one of those things where it's a game that, unfortunately, you lost, the one you didn't really want to lose, and now you're sitting on a 3-game losing streak, and outside of that, I mean, what can you really do? If you look at the plus minuses, Stankoven and Rosovic -2s, Hall, Blake, Svechnikov, Jost, Jarvis, and Aho, all -1s for the forward core. For the defense, -2 for Burns, Slavin, Walker, Gossesbear, all -1s. I mean, what else can you really say about that? It's just one of those things where, and Pierre Kochetkov, an .833 save percentage, 15 saves on 18 shots. Unfortunately, gave up 2 even strengths and a shorty. You really can't put this game on Pierre Kochetkov. It's just one of those things where you give uncostly turnovers to a guy like Tage Thompson, who had a down year last year. He's absolutely killing it this year. The Sabres are in a weird spot where they have guys scoring, but not at a rate that they think they would be. But, you give it the opportunity, he scores a goal. That's just something that you really can't do for the Carolina Hurricanes, is giving someone like Thompson an opportunity. And that's pretty much how it goes, too. And it doesn't really go your way. You look at Alex Tuck, it's just you not one of the greatest situations where, you lose a face-off, you kind of let him, kind of beat you into the zone, a play that never really should have happened on a face-off outside of Buffalo's zone. He gets a break, scores a goal. It is what it is. And then with Peterka, you look at the Sabres, you get a steal, they move it through the neutral zone, lose the puck once again, and then next thing you know, it's a 2-on-1, and now you got burned for a third goal. Basically, it was giveaways, and giveaways that kind of led to this game. Other than that, it wasn't really a terrible game. It's just now, unfortunately, you're on the losing end of a 3-game losing streak. You have been outscored 13-4, which we'll talk about more in segment 2, and now you're really setting yourselves up to be in a really tight battle for when it comes to the standings of even just the second seed, because if the Hurricanes won tonight, they would have clinched home ice advantage. But now they haven't really done that yet. Like I said, now their road record 16-19-3, 5-5 in their last 10. The Devils aren't really getting away from them. Yes, the Hurricanes still have a game in hand, but now they're 7 points up with 5 games to go. It's still a little too close for comfort when it comes to that, where, what's going to happen with home ice advantage. Now you look at the conference. Luckily, the Hurricanes are still within a dogfight of the Maple Leafs, because the Maple Leafs lost to Florida, but now Florida's back in the battle for the second seed in the East, because some of these teams are ahead of them. Now it's Toronto at 98, still in second. The Hurricanes are at 96, still in third. Tampa's at 96 in fourth. Now Florida's at 94, who's in fifth, so they're only 2 points back of Carolina. And now you got Ottawa, who's now 6 points back of Carolina and 8 points back of Toronto with 78 games played. Florida's also played 78. So, Ottawa lost, but Florida won, Tampa won. A lot of the top dogs all lost outside of, maybe Tampa and Florida for the East. So now you're looking in the Eastern Conference, where now it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this works out to, who's going to get that second seed. Yeah, Carolina's still in the fight, but now you're kind of putting yourselves in a tough position now to where you got not just Toronto you got to worry about. Now it's both Florida teams that are kind of in the fight for this. And you're still looking at, like, do you see an Ottawa Senators team making a run very late? Yeah, they did lose. However, they clinched their first playoff berth in a while, and now they're looking to, prove something as they're trying to, catch Florida for the third spot in the Atlantic. Of course, they're 4 points back with 4 games remaining, but anything is definitely possible there. It's just, for Carolina, this is just not a run you want to be on right now, where the power play has gone cold once again. You've now lost 3 straight road games. You were at the 500 mark on the road. Now you're back to 3 games under, and you're not scoring a lot of goals now. You scored 4 goals in 3 games. You just got shut out by the Buffalo Sabres. You've given up 13 goals. Gave up 5 to Detroit, 5 to Boston in both those games where you kind of started slow, had some opportunities. Maybe the score doesn't fully reflect it, but it doesn't help. And then you go into a Buffalo Sabres game where you shoot the lights out. Unfortunately, just bad turnovers and bad defensive play really didn't help in the fact that there's what more can your goaltender do? This is like now the 3rd game in a row where it's like the team wasn't really playing 100% great hockey in front of him. He had to make huge saves, and now he's saddled with another loss. It's a tough spot to be in right now if you're Carolina, and it's one of those things where, is there time to panic? No, but you still put yourself in a weird position of like, okay, they're not really playing great hockey. It's kind of a bad sign right now when you just clinched a playoff spot and then you lose the next 3 games against teams that technically you should have beaten. Like, out of 6 points, 5? You should have gotten at least 5 out of that. 4 at the worst. You could have won all 6. You could have gotten all 6 points, honestly, but now you sit at 0 in the last 3, and now you get to go play Washington on Thursday, and that has a lot of different implications as well, how that's going to play out. So it's just, you're on a bad run as of late. Now you have Kotkaniemi out. You're still don't know when Carey is going to be fully ready to go, even though they get Stahl and Spetch back, but now you're going to go up against the number 1 team in the East on Thursday to end this 4-game road trip, and you've not gotten a win yet. And you've, like I said, you've gotten outscored. So what does that really say going into that? Well, we'll dive into that more here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said into segment 1, what does that really mean for the Carolina Hurricanes right now, being outscored 13-4 in their last 3 games? And now you're going to go face Washington on Thursday? Well, it's not really the greatest predicament to be in if you're Carolina, because now you're looking at a possibility of you're going up against a team who did lose with the Washington Capitals, but they're really fighting for a President's Trophy right now. And Carolina is still fighting for a second spot in the playoffs for the East to get home ice advantage, at least the first round and hopefully through the playoffs outside of Washington. But now they're on a really bad run where you just got shut out by James Reimer, 33 shots, no goals, and you just gave, you let Buffalo score 3 on 18 shots. And, those were some bad defensive plays and some bad turnovers that led to that too. So it's not a place you want to be in. Now, could the Carolina Hurricanes, go and do what they did to Washington last week they did in Carolina? Yeah, it's possible, but you do have to give pause after a game like that, and especially on a stretch run now, like I said, where you easily could have gotten 4 out of 6 or 5 out of 6 or heck, all 6-6 if you really wanted. But now you're on a 3-game losing streak. Your road record's back to where it is, and you have 3 more road games for the rest of the season to at least just get it back to 500. The road record's not going to be over 500, unfortunately, for the Carolina Hurricanes. Now it's like they got to win the next 3 road games of Washington, next week in Montreal, and in the back-to-back with Ottawa the day after that on, Wednesday, Thursday. So now you got to win all 3 road games just to even get back to 500, and that's a tall task for these guys. And that's not even including for the fact that they have to go back home for Saturday and Sunday against the Rangers and the Maple Leafs. And the Sunday game is going to be a huge one because now, you're fighting with the team who's ahead of you for the 2nd seed in the East. You're looking at, outside of the Rangers, you're looking at a schedule for the Hurricanes where you're looking at the Maple Leafs, or the Washington Capitals, who are fighting for a President's Trophy spot. They're 3 points back with a game in hand against Winnipeg. But you also now got Toronto on Sunday, who are 2 points ahead of you with the same amount of games played for the 2nd seed. And then you're taking on the Montreal Canadiens, who hold the 8th seed in the East, and they right now hold the 2nd wildcard spot, and they're on a 6-game heater, which is absolutely insane to think, but they've won 6 games in a row now. They're at 87 points, 3 back of Ottawa, and now they're 8 points clear of the Rangers. They do have a game in hand, but now you have, like I said, you got to play the Montreal Canadiens next week. After the back-to-back at home, Saturday, Sunday, then you have a back-to-back that goes with Montreal in Montreal, which didn't go well the last time you were there. And then you get the Ottawa Senators, who've already locked up a playoff spot as the number 1 wild card seed, which even before the Devils have even clinched the spot, which is crazy to think about. Welcome to the weird divisional playoff format. But then those are the teams you're facing. You're facing, like I said, you got Washington, Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa. You have 4 playoff teams right now in your next 5 games. This is a stretch run of where you're getting outscored 13-4 in your last 3 games is not really a good spot to be in. Like I said, you got a very streaking hot Montreal team who's on a 6-game heater. Who knows what that looks like by next week? You've got Ottawa, who now is clinched a playoff spot for the first time after, a really long rebuild. So now they're in. You got to face them in the last game of the regular season. Got to play Toronto before this. You basically got 3 candidate teams to end the regular season, 1 at home, 2 on the road, and you're fighting against them for a second seed. And like I said, now you got Washington, who leads the division, who's 3 points back of Winnipeg for the President's Trophy, and they're, you just beat them, but they're still fighting for that as well. So you have, like I said, 5 games to go in the regular season. You got 4 playoff teams. This is going to be where this will prepare you for the playoffs. This will get you ready. And with 5 games left, you're talking 10 points. You at least got to get 5, 6. I would say 6. Get 6 out of that. Get 6 out of 10. 5 at the worst. At least go 500. At least get half those points. I mean, we're not really sure. I mean, I'm not. That's a whole. I'm not going to do a full prediction, but it's this is where it's. You have really good teams coming up. This will be, hey, are you ready for the playoffs? Are you going to be the team that's ready to go? Yeah, they're in. It's going to be different when you get to the playoffs. Regular season, does it carry over? It does for the most part, but this will get you ready for playoff-like atmospheres because you cannot roll into the playoffs struggling. Yes, you just lost 3 games in a row. Yes, you've gone, like I said, outscored 13-4. I know I've mentioned it a lot, but it bears repeating. This is the wrong time to start not winning games that you should be winning. You should be getting ready for playoff mode right now. I know, okay, it's the last 5, 6 games of the regular season. You're already in. You don't want to get too crazy and start losing other guys, even though Svechnikov's been out for a bit. Stahl was out for a little while. Now Kotkaniemi's out probably for a week, so you're not going to see him until next week at some point, right before the playoffs. Carey might be ready to go, all depending on how that works out. But the last thing you want to do is limp into the playoffs, because after that, what was there really to do for the Hurricanes? You're saying yourself, no matter who you face in the first round, you don't want to go into there struggling. You just had a big streak. You've been playing really well. You just beat Washington pretty handily, 5-1. And now you got on a 3-game losing streak where you just got shot out by James Reimer and the Sabres to lose that season series against those guys. And now you got 4 of your next 5 games against teams who are quintessentially in the playoffs. Montreal hasn't clinched yet, but they're very close to doing it because there's not a lot of games left, and they're 8 points clear of the Rangers, which is so crazy to think that we're not going to get Boston, Pittsburgh, or the Rangers and the Islanders in the playoffs, it's been a while since that has even happened. But now it's this is where you kind of have to. Yeah, a couple of teams haven't clinched yet, but this is where you're going to have a lot of playoff-like atmospheres going against teams who are gearing up for the playoffs. You got to have full 60 minutes of hockey. You got to cash in on your opportunities. You can't just give up 50-50 battles. You can't just be turning over pucks. You can't get lazy in your zone, which led to the Tuck goal. You got to be sharp. You got to be ready to go. And this is not the time to have scoring just go absolutely stone cold in 3 games against teams that you should have beaten. Is it time to panic? No. I wouldn't say there's never really time to panic. You know you're going to go to the playoffs. Is it concerning? A little bit. It's a little bit concerning when you, like I said, drop 3 games to teams you really shouldn't have at the very wrong time of the season to do it, and where, like I said, now you got 5 games left until the playoffs. And you got a lot of teams that are going to be gearing up for it, and you better be ready yourself. So is it ideal? No. Who would have thought that not having a Stahl or a Kotkaniemi in the lineup would really, throw off the balance of the center depth, and just everyone's getting going and the defense not really playing to where they need to be. And now you got, Frederick Anderson giving up 5 goals. Now you've got Pierre Kachekov giving up 8 goals in his last 2 starts and not really helping his confidence a whole lot when the team in front of him is kind of not really playing what they really need to be playing, kind of leaving him out the dry and having to do the bulk of the work. So, like I said, it's not really time to panic. Could be a little bit of a concern? Maybe, but yeah, I mean, this is a Rod Brind'Amour team. They'll turn it around and things will get figured out. It's just you better hope it gets figured out before Thursday because you have 5 games left and a lot of good teams that you need to go through before you get to the playoffs because you want to go into there on clicking on all cylinders and not having to give a piston blown out. And now you're going in there kind of limping and not going full gas. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. But what did Rod Brind'Amour say after the loss to the Sabres? Well, stick around and we'll listen to that here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
Do you have trouble sleeping? If so, you're not alone. That used to be me, lacking rest, tossing and turning. I was late for meetings. I never felt like myself. That's until I found Bare Mattress. Bare Mattress and their sleep recovery technology helped me fall asleep faster as well as enjoy deeper sleeps. I felt like myself again, and you can too. Bare Mattress knows that every sleeper is different. That's why they have their sleep quiz on their website that finds you your perfect match. As a side sleeper, I matched with the Elite Hybrid Mattress, and I've been telling everyone in my life they have to try Bare Mattress risk-free. You can sleep on your Bare Mattress up to 120 nights, and if you're not getting the best sleep of your life, you can get it refunded. They'll pick it up with absolutely no hassle. So go to bearmattress.com and use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout to get 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com. Use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said at the end of segment 2, what did Rod Brind'Amour say after the Carolina Hurricanes 3-0 loss to the Buffalo Sabres? Well, let's just hear from the coach right now. So without further ado, let's send it on over to Rod Brind'Amour.
Rod, somewhat of a similar conversation the past couple of games. What do you feel this one ultimately came down to?
Yeah, you're right. They're looking a little similar. It's not like terrible, but it's we got to score some goals. Obviously, that's been the deal here. It's not giving. We gave up too much early. I thought quality. It wasn't a ton, but it was quality, and can't do that to a team like that. They got some real snipers, and you saw it. They just put it in their net. So it's then you get behind, and then kind of we're chasing a little bit, trying to do a little too much. And that's what happens when you're not scoring. You start pressing a little bit, and that's clearly what's happening.
Just spoke with Jordan Stahl, who said he felt like, of course, we're getting our shots on net, but we're not really getting the grade A chances in a night like tonight. What do you feel that's kind of coming down to?
Yeah, I mean, we got to get more people at the net there. That's the old adage, right? But we did have a few that were, real good opportunities, and you give Rhymes credit. He made some big saves. But we got another level, that's for sure. It's obvious. And, we've taken a little breather here since we kind of got in. You could feel it. I guess I don't want to say it's kind of expected, but we got to snap out of it here quick.
What did you see from Pyotr Kochetkov tonight?
Well, he battled. The second one's probably shouldn't go in. There's not much that guy can do but put it there. So that one was tough. It was a good play by them, but we got to have that at that point probably. But I mean, can't put it on him. We don't score any goals. It's really irrelevant.
And then finally, just what's the conversation with this group as you pack up and head to Washington?
Yeah, well, we're still. I mean, look, we're in good shape. It's just we gotta get a little better. We gotta get a little more from our guys if we want to win. And you obviously want to do that heading into the playoffs. We want to feel good about our game, but like I said, it's a new day coming tomorrow. I don't want to get tuned down on the group. I mean, we still played a pretty decent game. It's just we got to find a goal here or there.
Big thank you to the Rod Brind'Amour and the Carolina Hurricanes as always for that. And I think the one thing to really take from it is and Rod said it towards the end was, can't really bury the guys too much because, I mean, it's one of those things where, they played a little bit lax after clinching, but, it's just the guy score goals. They've had some opportunities, just didn't really go their way. And it wasn't like they're playing beyond awful hockey. It's just one of those things where it's just giving up way too many quality chances. And you heard it, they asked about, Pierre Kachuk. It was like he battled, the second goal, really, the tuck goal. There's nothing you can really do about that. Put it in a spot where, hey, those guys got snipers. It is what it is. It's just, he he said you can feel that the room is a little bit more, there's no real urgency right now. They're feeling kind of lax. And like, I understand, like, you don't really want to push yourself too hard, but you still got games to play. You still got to, put yourself in good spots to have home ice advantage. Second, do you go for the second seed in the East, all this other type of stuff. It's just, you really don't want to put yourself into a bad opportunity to where it's, and he even says like you got to hope they get into gear sooner rather than later, because they got to get back into what was making them, win all those games very late, and why you saw 11 wins in March and them being the Capitals like they did. Is just Rod is hoping that, hey, let's get it back into gear now rather than later. It's just a bad stretch. It's just an unfortunate stretch where they're giving the other teams too many opportunities, and then the Hurricanes, when they get the opportunities, aren't really cashing in on them. And now you're on a bad stretch run of losing 3 straight. So it's just, and like I said, I appreciate Rod for saying that's one of those things where it's just, hey, can't really bury these guys too hard. It is an unfortunate run of games, but, they've battled really hard for the most part. I don't think scores truly reflect many of the games, but it's one of those things where it's like, not really where you want to be at right now with less than half a dozen games left in the regular season before the playoffs, and the playoffs are a whole other beast. So it's just, you try to take, we're not really going to get too hard on them, but also, hey, we kind of need to get it figured out now instead of, oh, it's game 1 of the first round of the playoffs. We're still kind of okay, but not really. The lock-in has to go pretty much now. So that way, you're not going into round 1 against probably New Jersey, and now you're kind of like, I don't know how this is going to go. So it's just, it's one of those things where, it's unfortunate, that sometimes you're not getting the puck luck, giving other teams opportunities when they don't really need it. It's just, kind of taking the foot off the gas a little bit. Maybe they need to find a way to put pressure back on it and get rolling again, because like I said, the last thing you want to do is your power play to go cold, and now you can't win on the road again going into the playoffs. Because I've been saying it for a while now. I know you guys are pretty sick of me saying it, but you want 2 things to really work for you in the playoffs. Your power play's got to be good, and you got to win on the road. Right now, the power play is kind of falling down and back again, and now you've lost 3 straight road games, and now your road record's 16, 19, and 3. And they win the next 3 road games, just get back to 500. So it's an unfortunate run. And do I think they'll snap out of it? Yeah, I do, because it's a Rod Brind'Amour led Carolina Hurricanes team who's won, who's gone to the playoffs 7 straight times and have won their first round in their playoffs the last 6 years. They're going for a 7th this year. It's just unfortunate it's just not the right time right now for everything to kind of not be where it's at. So like I said, nothing to panic. Maybe a little bit concerned, but I still feel very optimistic for how the Hurricanes are going to be with 5 games left in the playoffs coming up very, very soon. But guys, that will be a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen today. For your second listen, well, why don't you go check out the new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until the Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneShootZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin, where I do have link trees in my bios where you can check out all my Carolina Hurricanes articles at thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out my baseball stuff, well, it's coveringthecorner.com at SB Nation, talking about the Cleveland Guardians. If you want to check out my other podcasts, well, it's the Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For this show, well, it's on Google, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Locked On Hurricanes. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review, because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share with all other Canucks to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Wednesday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.